हेलो, नमस्कार, आदाब। मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ कल्चर, गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया, वेस्ट जोन कल्चरल सेंटर उदयपुर की ओर से आप देख रहे हैं हमारी ऑनलाइन सीरीज। व्यूअर्स, इट इज सेड art is what you can get away with, and it is also said that painting is poetry that is seen rather than felt, and poetry is painting that is felt rather than seen. जी, किसी कला विधा में ऐसा शिल्प पाना बहुत ही मुश्किल काम है, और यही शिल्प किसी कलाकार को विशिष्ट बनाता है। विशिष्ट है इस एपिसोड के आर्टिस्ट जो अपने पोएटिक वे ऑफ पेंटिंग के लिए जाने जाते हैं। आप हैं पुणे, महाराष्ट्र के श्री मिलिंद मुलिक। वाटर कलर्स से आपको इश्क है, आपको एक्स्ट्राऑर्डिनरी सेंस ऑफ वाटर कलर्स के लिए भी जाना जाता है। जी हाँ, यही आपका मीडियम है। आपकी पेंटिंग की क्लियर सिंपल स्टाइल है, जेंटल टेक्निक है। आपकी हर कृति मानव जीवन का एक अनुभव प्रकट करती है। एक्सपेरिमेंट आपको पसंद है, किसी भी सब्जेक्ट को आप सिंपल तरीके से कैप्चर करते हैं, और फिर उसके बाद पूरी तन्मयता, जुड़ाव, सहजता और प्रवाह के साथ आप अपनी उंगलियों से यूं कह सकते हैं कि एक जादू रचते हैं। जी हाँ, इसीलिए अगर हम आपको वाटर कलरिस्ट मैजिशियन कहें तो कोई अतिशयोक्ति नहीं होगी। आप अपने वंडरफुल नरेटिव डेमोन्स्ट्रेशंस के लिए भी जाने जाते हैं। आइए आपको बताएं श्री मिलिंद मुलिक जी के बारे में। अपने पेंटर पिता प्रताप मुलिक जी से आपको ये फन, ये कला, ये शौक विरासत में मिला। स्कूल डेज में आपको आर्ट एजुकेशन परस्यू करने के लिए नेशनल टैलेंट स्कॉलरशिप मिली, लेकिन आपने उसमें पढ़ाई करने की बजाय इंजीनियरिंग में अपनी पढ़ाई परस्यू की। लेकिन आपकी रगों में पेंटिंग का जुनून तो था ही, इसलिए आपने अपने करियर की शुरुआत फ्रीलांस आर्किटेक्चरल इलस्ट्रेटर से की, और उसके बाद कमर्शियल डिज़ाइनर, और लगातार आप पेंटिंग भी करते रहे। लेकिन इतने वर्षों के बाद अब आप पूरी तरह वाटर कलर पेंटिंग विधा को समर्पित हैं। अगर आपकी उपलब्धियों के अचीवमेंट्स की बात करें तो लंबी सी फहरिस्त है। 40 सोलो शोज और 4 शोज प्रेस्टीजियस जहांगीर आर्ट गैलरी में। इसके अलावा स्वीडन, फ्रांस, मॉरिशस, सिंगापुर में भी आपकी एग्जीबिशंस हुई हैं। इसके अलावा आपने बहुत सी ग्रुप एग्जीबिशंस पे भी हिस्सा लिया है। आप एक बहुत ही अच्छे ऑथर हैं, और अब तक आपकी 13 बुक्स आ चुकी हैं, जिनमें वाटर कलर्स आपका पहला पब्लिकेशन था, और फिर ये सिलसिला थमा नहीं। इसके बाद आपकी लगातार बुक्स आती रही, जिनमें पर्सपेक्टिव, वाटर कलर लैंडस्केप और एक्रिलिक, ये सारी जो आपकी बुक्स हैं, वाटर कलर एक्सप्रेशंस। जो भी इस फील्ड में लोग आना चाहते हैं या अपने आप को इस विधा में और स्किल्ड और अच्छा बनाना चाहते हैं, उनके लिए वाकई नायाब पब्लिकेशंस हैं। इंडिया में और इंडिया के अलावा चाहे दुबई हो, सिंगापुर हो, मॉरिशस हो, यूरोप हो, आपने कई जगह वाटर कलर पेंटिंग्स की वर्कशॉप्स कंडक्ट की हैं। आर्ट टुडे इंस्टीट्यूट के साथ आप बतौर टीचर, बतौर ट्रेनर जुड़े हुए हैं। आपके अवार्ड्स की बात करें तो उनमें इंटरनेशनल आर्टिस्ट मैगजीन में फॉर लैंडस्केप के लिए 2004 में आपको नवाजा गया है। और सबसे ज़्यादा जो बात आपके लिए कही जाती है वो ये कि आपका जो वर्कशॉप लेने का स्टाइल है, उसके साथ डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन के साथ जो आपका नरेटिव स्टाइल है, उसे लर्नर्स बहुत पसंद करते हैं। तो वेस्ट जोन कल्चरल सेंटर की ओर से, उदयपुर की ओर से आपका स्वागत करते हुए आइए रूबरू होते हैं श्री मिलिंद मुलिक।
first I do a little thumbnail of the painting that I want to do, so that I can do the space division. The main thing is how I put my objects in a rectangle, how I place my objects in a rectangle in correct places. So there are two houses in the back, one on the right hand side, a little building behind a road, and a left hand side. But now the rectangle is correctly divided. The details are not very important here. This is the colored version with little tones added to that. As I said, the details are not important, but you get a fair idea of tones, and then actually it works as a I won't say it works as a plan or guideline, but in your subconscious mind a lot of things get clear, which will come in handy when I'm actually doing the painting. I don't know all of them at this stage, but they are going to be there at the back of the mind. So according to the looking at the photograph and the thumbnail sketch, I am trying to make a placement of basic shapes. See, it is always like large shapes. Once you get your large shape in there on the paper, then small shapes will fall in place with relation to the other larger shape. So now these two houses are center of attraction almost, I can say. So I am drawing them first. I have marked the placement of them where they are going to be. But once I get that center of attraction correctly, then the rest of the objects will be according to them. So only the necessary things that are complementing to the center of attraction, that I am putting down on the paper. It is all about shapes, if you ask me. So there's a little car and a rickshaw, but what is rickshaw? A rectangular shape. Car, a similar rectangular shape. A window, a rectangular shape. A tree, amorphous shape. So this is the house in the front. The perspective is little critical here, so one has to be little careful. I am not too shy of having too many pencil lines on the paper, because once you start painting, those pencil lines they disappear either, or if they appear, they will only add to the beauty of the painting. That's what I think. Even a wrong pencil line, wrong in the sense, a guideline of a pencil line seen in a painting is actually a part of the painting process. So I don't have to erase them or anything. I like the lines to be seen. So I'm not extremely shy of putting too many lines on the paper, but if not necessary, I don't draw everything, okay, because I have a larger shape there and all the smaller shapes are going to fall in place. So while painting, they will directly come, so that my painting process has a guideline, but it doesn't have a very constrained pencil work, so that the brushwork will become more freer. if you know what I mean. So the process will be more of a evolving mystery rather than a very defined thing. This is the ultramarine blue. There's a white building on the right hand side, that's why it's a rectangle patch I'm doing, retaining the white on the right hand side. Left hand side is a dark building, so even if the blue goes inside, doesn't matter. Usually I use a very big flat brush or a mop to do the basic wash. So any brush which has a good retaining, the water retention capacity is good. Now this is the central house, which is a kind of yellow reddish orangish tint, more yellowish of course. So right now I'm thinking that like my color scheme can be more of a complementary nature, that the central building is very much yellow blue, and if I put the shadows in a say bluish violet on all three sides, they might nicely complement, and all the shadows will be on the road on the left hand side building and few on the right hand side, so it will be like an envelope to the central building. Currently all those other warmer colors in a lighter shade I'm putting it, but I have a lot of dark blue in mind already. Now if you notice, I just retained that hood of the rickshaw. Similarly, I want to retain some white for the car also. So these are very small areas, but they're going to get very important because of the leftover white. Because ultimately, finally, when all the painting is done, the white of the paper will shine the most. And if it is surrounded by other colors, then even more. So even I think the building is going to be white, but this hood of the rickshaw and that shining part of the car, top part, is a bigger part of center of attraction. So if you notice, everything else is getting connected with each other, like the left hand side, right hand side, and the bottom. Many times I like to mix my colors directly on the paper, like this is a phthalo blue, then little burnt sienna, and that will eventually turn into either brownish or bluish looking grey. So even if I want to create my neutrals rather than putting them in the palette, I like to let them happen on the paper itself. So so I can control the variation. Now there is a burnt sienna coming back to, mixed with phthalo blue. So certain areas of burnt sienna and phthalo blue remain on the paper, though the whole thing looks like a neutral grey. Those remained areas will give an interesting look. The speed is crucial here if you want to have a unfragmented wash that all the watercolor painters definitely know about it. And how your wash will look uniform or not, that all depends on the skill that you have, but obviously there are a lot of other factors like which town or country you are in. Is it very humid or very dry? Accordingly you have to do your process. So if it is very dry, you can spray little water on the paper. If it is very humid, you have to use a hair dryer. Currently, fortunately, I am in the middle, somewhere in the middle, neither very humid, not very dry. To break that huge amount of white, actually I like that white of the building, which is giving like a nice flat backdrop for the cluster of houses in the front. But it's a too big white, so giving a little building structural look. What is one important point I would like to discuss with those who are new to watercolor medium or new to landscape painting? The tendency would be to paint every object separately, like paint one house, then paint the other house, then paint the car. Instead of that, if you paint everything, let a little color blend into other, let them move into others. So do it like a variegated wash, and then with final brushwork we can pull back the drawing. So if there is a little this house has gone into that roof and that roof has gone into something else, so you know what I mean, there is the color has moved outside the line, and like a variegated wash, and then we can pull it back with a brushwork on top, as I'm saying. That gives a better look to the painting. Certain things I'm painting like very carefully. It's a building in the background because I want to retain the white and so I'm not letting it move into the building, which is my center of attraction, painting carefully. But later on you will notice, let's see, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I don't like to stick a very inside the line approach. I like the blends a little bit. So the shadow of this building blending into the building behind, if you notice, shadow side of this building. This is a spatter for the tree which is there, so it's a random thing, but I'll bring it back into a shape. Just a touch of blue to this deep Hansa yellow which I use, like a chrome yellow, will give a nice green shade. I don't want too much green in that tree, obviously, to match the color scheme, and also the reference photo is not showing, like it's not a very fresh green. Those tiny red orangish I mixed. Those are some kind of flags which are hanging there. Covering the shadow area and retaining the light area. So this is called as I call it as subtraction. Okay, you are painting the darker side and you are leaving the light side. Some call it a negative painting, which is the same thing as subtraction. What I mean to say is, in this stage, the important thing is, like, my attention should be on the shapes that are not being painted rather than the shapes that are being painted. More attention on the shapes that are not being painted, because those shapes which are not painted are going to get the maximum attraction. The shadow side will look interesting, obviously, but the light side would catch the attention. Now I want a shadow to be more darker. Though I have blue in mind, I am putting all the red and brown warmths that I want in the beginning and let them mix with blue. Okay, because there is an interesting brick wall side of this house. So, but ultimately, in my mind, I am going to neutralize these areas as much as possible, so that the attention will go back on the central two houses. So that's added blue on that, reducing the redness of the house. I mean, there is all of you must have heard about the center of attraction. But what I want to add further is there need not be only one center of attraction in the painting. There can be 2 or 3 points of attraction which are complementing and complementing each other. Complementing in the sense the viewer's vision will keep on bouncing from one to other, but it will remain inside the painting. That is more important. The vision is not directed to go outside the painting. So if you look at it right now, those white areas in the right hand side building, they are catching more attention than the building behind. But both the vision will keep on bouncing on both of them. Let's see what happens further down the line. The mixture of phthalo blue and burnt sienna, so it will create a nice cool neutral. Now, if you notice on the left hand side, there's a huge dark place. I mean, there are buildings and the details will come later. But right now, it is one big shape on the left hand side, which is enveloping the central area. So here, the extreme right side, I have kept it much warmer and left side cooler, so that there is a mysterious blend of warm in the center, enveloped by cool around. I think I'm pretty happy at this point with the placements, and in fact I'm more than happy right now, which creates a little bit of which I won't call it tension, yeah. Now mainly the dark areas and the very darkest dark brushwork, which kind of defines the drawing, that will start soon. Usually I do mix my dark with burnt sienna and phthalo blue, which is almost like a neutral to the level of neutral. And adding more brown, it becomes warmer. Adding more blue, it becomes more cooler. So every dark stroke is it catches the attention, similarly as the whitest white, I mean the lightest light catches the attention, the darkest dark also catches the attention, and when they are close to each other they catch the highest attention. That's why most of the time our center of interest is the area where the maximum contrast is seen. So I want to retain that what I would say a high key, a very bright look of the house, yet want to show the details on it. So I'm being very careful. So immediately after the little dark, I'm moving into a very lucid middle tone area, so that it doesn't look very starky. The quality of the light has to be seen. This is the stage where one has to be careful, because I'm working on a very sensitive area of the painting. So every mark is going to contribute something, contribute to doing it good or even bad. I mean, it's going to be strongly affecting that mass underneath. So I'm being very careful and economic. the time where you start go on defining things with dark areas, light areas against the dark areas. So things get defined, steps are created in a painting, that the tree is behind the house is in front of tree or whatever. So a lot of sharp edges come, but I try to blend them, and because I don't like too many sharp edges all over the painting, so there has to be a what I can say is there has to be a balance between sharp edges and lost edges. Okay, so it is a constant play of sharp and lost and found kind of thing. And it's one of the important aspect of painting, because the viewer's eye will glide over the sharp edge and will merge into the soft edge, so he will be traveling around those sharp edges, and that's very much a part of the aesthetics of the painting. See, my advice to the students is always look at a painting as a design. It doesn't matter whether you are doing a very realistic painting, representational something, or even abstract design. Ultimately, what you are creating is the aesthetic beauty, the balance of tones, balance of color, movement that is created because of the edges in the painting, the color harmony. So all these elements are more important than a very realistic depiction. If you have a correct perspective, correct drawing, correct proportions and correct tones and temperature, then it will look like if you're doing a realistic painting, it will look very realistic. But from a painter's point of view, it is the design that I'm more concerned than the realism. I hope you get my point. See, so what I mean to say is, for a painter, every painting is an expression of abstract, is like an abstract expressionism. The outcome might be realistic, outcome might be stylized, outcome might be abstract, but for me, it is a design and expression and an abstract expression. This is that tiny auto rickshaw which I am being identified with, because Pune has a lot of these rickshaws, and I like them because they contribute nicely to the painting. They are not too modern, they are not too historic, but they are interesting in shape. And then there is a parked car behind. See, one doesn't have to be absolutely accurate, because ultimately this is impressionism, and all art is about suggestion. We are suggesting the viewer to imagine there is a rickshaw there is a car there, and the more the viewer is given a suggestion, he will be more active in appreciation of the painting. So this interaction of the viewer will make him more happy, because he has a chance to imagine things his way, and that gives him more happiness than showing him that this is this. And so painting is more like an interaction with the viewer, also from a viewer's point of view. So this reminds me like a poetry, like the poet writes a poetry, but the reader will interpret it in his own way, so he is happy. So every poem, as they say, becomes the one who is reading it. So similarly, a painting can be a happiness for a viewer also. Anyway, that's just an afterthought. But as far as I am concerned, I am happy with my lost edges and found edges and the design. Actually, it's fun. It's a lot of fun doing detailing. Okay. I don't know. It's like playing with a small brush and little tiny details. It's a very pleasing experience of creating a very crafty thing. But the whole point is one has to be very careful that every detail I'm doing, is it contributing to the painting or is it hampering the painting? And this is where the tricky situation comes. That you have to strike a balance between sharp lines, tiny details, and the moment you think it's becoming too much, just blur them with a bigger mass or something. Now I think the time has come to make a decision whether to stay a very high key or go into a darker contrast. So I can make this painting a very high key with a very minimum contrast on the shadow area. But I'm going to try and do a lot of darks. Okay, not this time. It's always every painting is an exploration in itself. Now I have decided to free myself a little bit because this is not the absolutely center of attraction area. But to make it interesting enough, there are two possibilities, like make the whole thing very dark, or a transition between extreme dark and a middle tone, which will keep that area interesting without hampering the center of attraction. Something like that. Another original photograph is showing a lot of darkness in these areas, and yes, I do want to explore that. So the bottom beautiful area of the bottom wash is going to get sacrificed, but then you can't have it all at the same time. this is a little tough area because there are a lot of parked scooters, parked bicycles, and whatnot there. But then the trick is to forget what is there, just do little brushwork in a direction which makes it appear that something is there. The rest we will leave it to the viewer. I mean, of course, there is you can observe it very carefully and do it very carefully also. But the way this painting is going on, it's more of a the main attraction is the contrast between light and shadow and some interesting house shapes. So I'm not going to bother myself with the accurate detailing. That line, I scratched it with the back of my thumbnail. Some white pole there. Maybe I'll add little opaque later. I really actually like those drips, vertical down drips. Sometimes I try to retain them also quite a bit in my paintings, but sometimes I move them. Now this is I started with a thin wash and now suddenly a thick patch that will create a vignette kind of effect, a very dark at the bottom of the painting. Let's see if this a little white pencil works. I don't know, maybe later I'll check it if it works. No, not really, it's not working too good. I'll have to use something else later on. Many a time I use this opaque white which is not gouache or watercolor but which is acrylic because if I don't like that white and want to wash over it, that is possible. If I use a gouache white, then it will get mixed with the wash on top of it. Now this is what I had practiced long time back, making a straight line using a ruler. If I think any dark mass has become very large, even a small opaque line breaking that mass can work. texture on that wall, that particular wall with tiny bricks. And I am getting tempted to draw all those bricks, but then I'm holding myself because that is not the central area. Okay, now let's go back, go to this left hand side. And again a very sharp detail merging into a blur area is what I'm thinking right now. That's why I'm not very shy of doing very sharp work here, because I plan to merge it on the left hand side. The tree which is growing on the wall. I mean, I love this people trees, people or pimple we call it. They grow anywhere. If they find a little crack in the wall or between the balcony and the wall, they start growing, and as long as it's not damaging the building, I think it's beautiful. I love it. Now let's see how this left side develops. See, the tricky thing is in these areas, the side areas which are not again the center of interest. You can keep them very simple, but sometimes a very simple area might look undone. And then you have to add some details, but in such a way that inconspicuous way, I would say. Like they're there, but they're not there. I mean, the details are needed to define a realism, obviously. So yeah, it's a little tricky thing. See, when you do a painting, I mean, the method I use is, I would call it like more of exploration. Okay, the plan is there, but how the painting will actually get developed, I have no clue. Obviously, I'm using all my tricks of the trade and my previous experience, but every painting is an exploration in itself. That's why every stage will have its own challenge. Okay, maybe in the first stage I had thought of leaving the left area, not darkening the left area to the extent, just leave it like one wash or something. But now I'm thinking, okay, let's do something about it, because there is so much of thing which has happened in the center. A suddenly blank area on the left hand side might not look appropriate. It has to balance that, not hamper that, but also balance that with the appropriate amount of crowd on left hand side as well. This particular spot is actually very close from my studio, and I mean, many students have passed on this road and they have noticed this house, and by now they know So if you look at that yellow house in the center, the painting is creating sort of a mystery that what is happening on that road. If you want, I mean, I hope the viewer wants to travel this road a little further and see what is there further down the road. And the funny thing is, coincidentally, that is where my studio is. Of course, it's in a modern building, but at the end of this road, it's on the left hand side. So I don't know who the viewers are right now, but if you all or one of you ever come to Pune, please do visit this place. Now, if you have noticed, the speed at which I am working has suddenly reduced because the decision making is becoming more and more difficult. I mean, this is the least important area of the painting, and that's where the decision making becomes most critical. But I mean, unless you try and explore, you never know whether it will work or not. I'm very hesitant doing these very strong perspective lines and details. But then one has to do it and see whether it works or not. I think it's working. It's not. It's kind of working. Since I'm shooting this video, my every stage is recorded, so it is also a lesson for a viewer whether I don't know whether I have worked sufficiently or I have done the overwork. That is up to you to decide, but this can also become a lesson for the students to know where they would want to stop. Okay, I mean, I am showing my best side as well as maybe I am showing you what mistakes can happen. I'm not very sure this is a mistake at the moment because I'm doing it. But if it's a mistake, again, it's educational for you guys. That's what I mean to say. See, I've been painting for many years, I mean almost 35 years, and doing watercolor consistently since 2006 almost. Before that I used to paint in all mediums, but eventually I settled. I mean, today also I paint in acrylic a lot, but somehow with my temperament and the easiness, watercolor remains to be the major part of my time. So what I have realized that certain things change and certain things don't change. So when I look at my paintings 20 years back, I would like to believe there is a lot of uh, development. Okay. See, development is the tricky word because when you are young, you have different fortes. When you grow old, uh, the knowledge is more, but the energy is less, something like that. So at every stage, there are different USPs in your life. The point I'm saying is over the time, as you grow old, some people will call it as you mature and develop. I'm just saying that as you grow old, the style has to, not the style, something has to change. It can't remain the same. So now what I'm saying is I find a lot of things have changed and some things have not changed at all. So it's a very interesting analysis in your own journey to really find out which are the areas that are changed and which are the areas that remain the same. Like just imagine yourself 20 years back. So are you the same person today? So in some aspect, yes, you are, and in some aspect, no, you are not. So similarly in a painting, so it is only I who can decide what has changed and what has not changed. Sometimes I get comments from people, oh, now I can see a change in your painting. And it turns out that this was a painting which I had done 20 years back, which now he finds, oh, now there is a change in your painting. So anyway, the discussion is going very sideways. But that reminds me of a Oscar Wilde quote that it doesn't have to be don't worry about whether you have changed for better or changed for worse. A change has to be there and you should feel it. That's important. Whether the viewer feels it or not, that's not important. And that change is what keeps the excitement on. If today morning I get up and if I have the excitement that I want to go to my studio and now paint this, or even when I sleep today, I'm thinking of the next day that yes, I want to paint something. That is the excitement which has to keep alive. And that means the change is there. That means you're not stagnated. Now I'm closing. So usually whenever I do a demonstration or I'm doing a plein air with a group of artists, I always try to keep a friend next to me who's like a police, okay, who is going to help me stop. All my students also are very shy of asking me to stop, but I do take a lot of help from my students and ask them to really guide me when to stop. Some artists say they know when to stop, etc., etc., but I don't believe that. Nobody knows where exactly to stop, because there is a momentum of process. Okay, so it's like running down the slope. So it's not easy for you to stop. You need a outside influence to actually, like a Newton's law, the the body keeps in the motion unless affected by the outside force. So the same is the momentum. When you start painting, the whole your mind, body, and your entire thing is in the motion of painting. So whenever you want to stop, you have to take the help of the external somewhat like that. That's why I always take help of somebody, or if I have to help myself, then I think I just do the signature, and that is, I'm telling myself now it's time to stop. But still not. I am not. One bicycle. Okay, I have painted one car, one auto rickshaw, and there has to be one bicycle which looks like a bicycle. The other things looks like anything, like broken scooters. I think that's actually there. It's a two-wheeler garage. So these spatters is actually a decoration. Like they are like, I always like to call them as what you spatter that on pizza, oregano flakes, chili flakes, spattering chili flakes on your painting. And the sharp lines also is a part of a decoration of the painting. The main structure is now done. Whatever you are doing is a makeup of the complexion. But it adds, I mean, it's the beauty of it. And I hope you all have enjoyed the demonstration. Had it been more educational or less educational, boring or interesting, that is up to you to decide. And thank you very much.